Practically Imperfect Life. Today I thought I would change it out from doing my normal homeschooling videos and give you a little bit of an update on how things are going with all of our spring garden work and getting ready for another big planting season. For those of you who have been watching for a while, you know that gardening is a passion of mine. It is something that over the last 5 to 6 years, I've really started to learn a lot about, and I've put a lot of time and effort into expanding the number of garden beds that we have here at our home. And that has allowed us to grow more and more of our own food that we can then preserve in different ways and then use throughout the year. Plus, I always enjoy growing things that simply look pretty. I love being able to walk through my yard and enjoying the views, sitting out there with a book, having people over and having them enjoy the garden as well. And spring is always a busy time of year for gardeners. There is so much work to be done in order to get things ready for our planting. There's a lot to do with regards to seed starting and bed preparation and figuring out what kind of projects you're going to be working on this year. Therefore, I thought I would give you an update, tell you some of the things that we are working on, some of the issues that we're having out in the garden, and I also wanted to chat just a little bit about being happy or at least being content with the imperfect status of things in the garden.
So right off the bat in the front garden beds, these are in front of the porch, you can see lots of the perennials are starting to come back up. Tulips are just about to bloom in this area, but we also see our first big spring project, and that is re-edging all of these beds. You can see grass and weeds have started to creep in, and the lines just aren't very defined. So we'll go through, we've got a couple of different tools that we use in order to edge this out, basically kind of cutting out some nice straight lines in order to just really define this bed, and everything is going to pop an awful lot more once we really get in here and we start mulching. We've also got a couple of plants where we're really not sure if they survive. These are two shorter perennial grasses, and last year they took forever to start to really green out, but I'm just not sure. Looking into them, I'm unsure if they've made it this year or if they need to be replaced. They seem to struggle a little bit and unsure why. Hydrangeas, though, are looking really good, and you can see here, I'm going to point out some Nepeta that are coming back. I have shorter Nepeta, that is the Cat's Meow Nepeta, I think is the shorter one, and then I have the larger Cat's Pajama. I might have those flip-flopped. But I'll also put some names up here of different bulbs that are starting to bloom, like these precocious daffodils. I love doing a ton of daffodils because they do naturalize in our area, which means they will spread out from year to year. My favorite daffodil is up here. This is the Delnashaw daffodil. I planted these in the back last year. They're a double daff, and all of these daffodils came from color blends along with the different tulips. I mixed and matched tulips in different places, and my cat is trying to say hi, but I've got mostly pink shades for tulips. I really enjoy the pinks, but tulips really only last for a season for us. Hyacinths are another thing that will naturalize. These were the Gypsy Queens. I'll try to throw up a picture of what they looked like when they were kind of in their full glory, but they're starting to fade out, and we're going to go ahead and let them sort of die back and recharge for next year. But tulips, as opposed to the daffodils and hyacinths, they really will only last for one season for us. They might pop back up next year, but if I treat them more like an annual, then I'll get a better show of tulips year after year. It's a little bit more work to be digging them up and replacing them, but it's so worth it for the bright show that we get. But I love all the colors. Lots of things are looking really good. And then I'll show you my favorite view from the front porch is just this line of tulips. It's a mix of two different varieties, just all different shades of pinks, and I just really love it. Here's my lilacs I planted last year. And then I have a trio of yellow roses. Now I planted these last year, and I wasn't really sure if I loved them here. And even more so now that I think one of them died. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find a replacement one, and it'll look kind of odd to put something different. So those might move this season. I'm just not sure where they will move to. But that's just something that can happen in the garden. Some things will survive and others won't. Here you can see a couple of red tulips. I planted these last year. I must have forgotten to pop those bulbs out, so they look a little odd against all of the pinks, but it's okay. Here are the blushing ladies, my absolute favorite tulip. I have a bunch of these in the front bed that haven't bloomed yet, but this side of the house gets really hot sun and it reflects off the house nicely, so everything over here blooms much more quickly. These are fine line buckthorns. I want to do a whole row of these going down the side of the house. So I started with 3 last year. The middle one is not leafing out. I'm pretty sure it's dead. But we will go ahead and replace that along with finishing the line. And then this whole side is just a crazy mix match of daffodils and tulips. I just absolutely love the color. But also you can again see more spring projects. I have been out here weeding over and over and over again, trying to stay on top of them in the spring. If you can get on top of your weeds in the spring, they will basically weaken out and you shouldn't have as big of a problem in the summer months. Now in the backyard, we have a shade bed. It does not look super shady right now because the tree hasn't leafed out, but I'm pointing out here just some of my Lenten roses. These started blooming in late February, which is always a beautiful surprise when there's still snow on the ground. I also have a forsythia that is in its full glory. I love it. I wasn't sure if I'd love the yellowish color, but I just think it's beautiful and I'm definitely going to add more. Behind it, you can see a trellis that is, well, it's crooked right now, but that's my climbing hydrangea. I will add a second trellis next to that this year because hydrangeas, climbing hydrangeas, they sit for a year and they don't really do much. And then in the 3rd year after you plant them, they tend to really take off. But just more of a spring color show here. Lots of thick daffodils planted. This is the 2nd season for those daffodils, so they have thickened up much more than before. Back of our property, we have this row here that I also need to work on. Now, this was an area that was here when we moved in. It had these rebars in the ground with kind of these, I don't know what you call them, like the railroad ties. And I want to get those all pulled up. I also had a tree company come in last year and I had them pull out 3 old crab apples. Like they were the ones that dropped like the nasty fruit everywhere and I really did not want to keep those. So I purchased a couple of fruit trees. I've got 3 different varieties of apple trees and a peach tree. And I am going to be planting those here and kind of creating an orchard. I just need to figure out spacing and get things cleaned up and leveled out here so I can get those trees in the ground and actually have something here that we really want to use. A lot of work has already been done on our raised bed garden. There are 8 beds over here. This one is the oldest of the beds. It has our perennial strawberries in it. These are in their 2nd season. I've already gone through and tried to clean it up a little bit, but you can see where this bed is starting to fall apart. It's over 10 years old. It was the first one we ever built. I will probably need to replace it after this season, which means the strawberries are going to have to move at that point. But I will replace it with a bed similar to the ones I put in last season, which are these ones I got off Amazon. Really liked them, easy to put together. All of these beds over here I have topped off with the soil. I will add some compost when I go to actually put plants in. So they are just sitting, waiting for something to go in. Probably will get the onions put in before too long here, but I also wanted to show you my garlic. I put this in the fall, and it's a bulb. It's related to allium, so it comes up in the spring, and then you harvest it around like the 4th of July. There are 4 varieties here. The tags faded out over the winter. Probably not the best way to mark them, so I have no idea which is which. But there are 4 varieties, 2 soft neck and 2 hard neck, I believe. Maybe I can look back at the video and figure out which is which, but I wanted to try a couple of different varieties and just see what sorts of things we like to cook with. Here on the far side of the barn, we have an area that we created last year. So we have this large in-ground area, and that's where we grew all of our pumpkins and our vining crops last year. It worked out really well. We had laid down cardboard and then several inches of soil on top of that, and it just worked out beautifully. We didn't have to tear up the sod. We had very little trouble with weeds. I've gone through and done some weeding already this spring, but here is one of my concerns. So we have this landscape fabric that's down. It's heavy duty fabric. We put pea gravel down, but the pea gravel won't pack, and so it shifts around a whole bunch and it leaves these exposed areas. So I don't know. I'm thinking of purchasing a crushed limestone, something that's a little bit bigger, laying it on top, and just kind of slowly replacing the pea gravel with that. It's a big added expense to re-rock it, but it's going to need to happen. And just an unfiltered view, though, of an imperfect garden. So I've been going through and weeding this whole area. This was kind of an afterthought last year. I put in these perennials to kind of just start a pollinator garden, and I think that's what I'm going to continue. I'm starting hollyhocks and delphinium and foxgloves down in the basement, and then I've got all of these piles of weeds. I've been trying to weed as I can, and then the piles will move over into the burn pile, but right now it does look a bit of a mess. It's just needs a ton of work. And that's just kind of what happens when you're creating new spaces and trying to figure them out. But I'd love it to just be all filled with flowers, something that I don't have to do a whole bunch with from year to year. And the more I fill it in with perennials, the less work it will be. But right now it's just, I don't know, one giant project, so to speak. But as far as the rest of these beds, I've got 4 more raised beds over here. We've, again, topped them off. They will mostly be filled with cut flowers. And then this big area, like I said, pumpkins were here last year, but we have issues with squash bugs in our area. So I really need to rotate the vining crops to somewhere new. So I think this year on the far end of the bed, I will do a few rows of corn. I do want to grow more corn than I did last year. And then I'll have maybe the potatoes over here. And then I'm thinking of even putting our tomato cages up, doing a row of those and then a row of dahlias in front of that. The dahlias got way too big for where they were at last year in the raised beds, so I think they will do better if they are in the ground. Now, just opposite of that area, I have our newest in-ground bed area. This was a ton of work, but thankfully I had some wonderful people come help me out. This is the method that we are trying to do when we have to do these big expansions. We basically lay down cardboard. So I hoarded cardboard from lots of different sources. I looked for ones that didn't have a whole bunch of color printing on them, took off every piece of tape or mailing label. We laid it down, wetted it down, and then put several inches of soil on top of that. So this is a mix of brown and black soil and peat moss. So it's just a good, healthy mix of soil. And that will break down the cardboard over the next couple of years. You'll see that the edges are not perfect yet. I haven't put in the border that's going to go around it. So just like on the other side, I will lay down some heavy duty landscape fabric, put rock over that, and then an edging. That's just another thing that has to be done this spring, but at least the big part, the getting the bed created, is done. Now, I'm thinking the vining crops will all go here this year. It is larger than the other bed, and that's good because I have like 10 varieties of pumpkins that I want to plant, plus cantaloupe and watermelon and butternut squash, and those things spread out like crazy. So this will give them a nice big area to grow in. I'm just really excited to have some additional growing space this year. I think it'll be great. And then the plan for next year, I'll save up cardboard again, and we will put in a 3rd in-ground bed on the far side and have even more growing space. And now for something that just makes me sad. We have lots of really large old trees on our property, and this one on the right, it's dead. It's very dead. 2 years ago, it started to look like it was on its way out. Last year, we knew it was for sure dying, and this year it's just totally dead. And we had a tree company come out to quote what it would be to take it out, and it's thousands of dollars. It's so expensive to have trees removed. And the arborist, while he was here, took a look at this large evergreen. I mean, compared to the house, you can see just how huge these trees are. And he said it has a slow progressing disease that is causing the needles at the bottom of the tree and on the inside of the branches to fall out. And he said that will only get worse over the next 4 or 5 years. So eventually that tree will have to go out. But this big one on the right, it's just a giant eyesore, but it's something that we're going to have to try to plan for to get that out. Maybe even just cut it down and leave the stump for a year and have the stump removed at a later time. But they're just such big prominent parts of the yard, and I have no idea what I would replace them with. It's just, I don't know, sad to see something that was so beautiful have to go. My kids enjoyed kind of climbing up in that tree because the lower branches were low enough that you could get up on it and kind of play around in it. But that means I can put something new in, and I'll just have to figure out what will be the next thing to add.
All right, let's start with just a quick little overview of what we have. So I have 4 tower systems, the 2 shorter ones. this tall one, and then this is my newest tower system. I just got this one this year. This is by far my favorite, and if I get another one, I will get this one. It is a bit deeper than the others, so it does allow me to fit 2 trays deep, and that has been really helpful for the space. I also like the lights that came with it because I can change the type of lighting that is coming out depending on whether seeds are just started or if I have things that are kind of growing on. All of my lights are set on timers. I actually use the same timers that I use for my Christmas trees in December, and it puts the lights on for 16 hours a day, and I don't have to think about coming in and turning them off, turning them on. I also have this set up. So this Govee thermometer connects to an app on my phone, and I put in parameters on the temperature. So you can see here, I will get an alert if the temperature in this room drops below 66 or if it goes over 82. And then that way I can come in and adjust things. I also keep a fan going in here. I have it turned off right now, but it's constantly going to provide air circulation. And that also will move all of these stems a little bit each time the fan goes past them. It helps to strengthen up the stems of the plant. But let's go take a look at all of the different things we have growing and kind of what their purposes are. These are, okay, my troop actually started these. The little kindergartners in my troop wanted to start flowers. So I took these in and they started some zinnias, and I'm going to take them to a meeting here soon, and they're going to plant them or pot them up and then take them home. These back here are pastel stock. So a really pretty early blooming crop. It will bloom like late May and in June. It doesn't really do super well once it gets very hot, but for the first part of the summer, I'll have some early blooms that I can use. Here are my different pepper plants. I have several different peppers started. I've got red bell peppers, green bell peppers, and a yellow bell pepper, and then there's like a spicy pepper as well. Little tomato plants. My first time starting tomatoes from seed, and I'm not really quite sure if they're all doing super great. I've been giving them fertilizer twice a week along with plenty of water. You know, some of them look a little bit, I don't know, tired, whereas others look a little more robust. Most of what I started are Romas, but I've got celebrity tomatoes and, oh, I got a couple heirloom tomatoes because we do a lot of canning of sauce and diced tomatoes, and I wanted to just grow more of those. Let's see. Back here we have straw flowers. Over on this side, we've got calendula over there. This is, I think this is more stock. Yep, more stock. So another whole tray of stock. These are some that I just got potted up. All of my cosmos, they did this last year too. They stretch so incredibly tall. So when I took them out of their initial tray, I actually buried about that much of the stem in order to give them a little more support. They're all looking pretty decent. They're just so tall and leggy. Then I have some status that needed potted up and hollyhocks. I started a ton of hollyhocks. Hollyhocks are gorgeous. I'll try to throw up a picture of what these ones will look like. These are the carnival, summer carnival hollyhocks. They should look beautiful. They're gonna go over by the barn in that area. Even more bell peppers because we love bell peppers. You can never have enough. But onions, I went a little crazy with the onions. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 trays of onions. And as you can see, each cell actually has anywhere from 3 to 5 onion plants in it. I have a few varieties. I've got Talon onions, I've got New York early onions, and I have Walla Walla sweet onions. Artichoke plants, they did not germinate super well. I mean, all of these cells had seeds and only 3 came up. I don't know why. We'll see what happens. And another tray of straw flowers. My daughter had asked if I would do straw flowers. She really wanted us to try to dry them this year. They are an excellent, excellent dried flower. Status is another one that's an excellent flower to dry. It keeps its color really nicely, but we want to go ahead and we want to try drying them and creating some dried bouquets, some to keep, some to sell. Even more cosmos. These ones are potted up. These ones I still need to pot up once I have a little more space. But the onions will get planted out here before the end of April, and that will clear up quite a bit of space. We just started our pumpkin seeds. I have, I don't know, like 10 or 12 different pumpkin varieties for this year. Everything from little tiny hot chocolate ones, champion pumpkins, which are probably as close to like a regular jack-o'-lantern as you can get. Polar bear, which are large white ones. Casperitas, which are mini whites. Up here, I have more status. So this is just a color mix of status. In the back, I think these are more straw flowers. Yep, more straw flowers. I just got a mix of a lot of different straw flower colors. These are my different amaranths. Last year, I grew these ones, and I'll try to show a picture of what these grow up to be. They get monstrously big, but they are gorgeous. And so I'm doing two other varieties, a lighter one and one that's called, I think it's called Emerald Tassels. And then you can see back here, I have yet another big tray of hollyhocks going. Okay, pull down this one so you can see it. Delphiniums are something that I've really struggled to get started this year. I tried two other full trays of delphiniums and they just would not germinate and would not germinate. And this one I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6. I do not know what I'm doing wrong with them. If you've grown delphinium from seed, let me know. But the Fever View is doing beautifully next to there. That'll be for cut flowers. Lysianthus did not germinate. Again, I do not know why, but eucalyptus is doing quite well. This one is, let's see if I wrote the variety name, Baby Blue Eucalyptus. And even though it's super tiny, it smells just like, you know, full-grown eucalyptus. So it smells really, really good over here. Over here, I have some different foxgloves. Some did better than others. So you can see that the germination on these Dalmatian peach foxglove was fairly decent. This one, not so much. This one, a little bit. Now, foxgloves, just like delphinium, are poisonous. So the seeds are poisonous, the plant is poisonous. So obviously you want to be careful, especially if you have small children. I don't have small children. My animals leave things alone. So hopefully that will be okay. But those are going to go over by the barn. These were just started. So you can see we've just got the very beginning stages of germination here. These are Bells of Ireland. And probably could open that up a little bit for them. Then I have some Rudbeckia. So I have Sahara Rudbeckia. And this one is Prairie Sun. Now these are actually annuals in our area. There are types of Rudbeckia that are perennial, but these are not. Now something to keep in mind if you're starting seeds is that if you get a little bit of algae on the top, that's not actually, you know, that's not gonna hurt anything. You can scrape it off if you really want to. It's mold you wanna watch for on your seed trays, but a little bit of algae's not that bad. I have found that the Miracle Grow brand of seed starting mix, is much more prone to having algae develop on it than if you get like the Espoma seed starting mix. So just something to note. Here we've got another set of things that we've gotten started. So we just planted these seeds, like just got them in here. So obviously they won't germinate for a while, but this will be our cauliflower, our broccoli, and then we have a couple different types of cucumbers. I've got General Lee. These ones are Supremo, Market More, and Max Pack. So the Max Pack are the ones that I use to make pickles for my daughter. We canned so many pickles last year, and obviously I'm not going to need that many cucumber plants or, you know, that many of these plants. Once they get growing on, I keep a couple for here at home, and then I usually hand out the extras to friends and family. More pumpkins that I've gotten started. Let's see, that's the porcelain doll. I think that one might be Scarface, so that's one of the ones that's like the warty pumpkins. And then I have a flat stacker. Even more status going down here. This one's an apricot one, and then a pastel mix. This is Crispedia, whole tray of that, so for the cut flower garden. Down here, I have a whole bunch of different types of zinnias. Now, zinnia is one where I actually really don't need to start it ahead of time. They actually grow really well for us from seed, but I wanted to have some that were fairly well grown on to put in certain places, and then I have other spots where I will just direct sow them. So I did actually hold back on some of these seeds to direct sow outside. This is my tray of Dusty Miller. I have a couple different varieties here. Let's see, that's the New Look Dusty Miller, and I can't read the whole label on that one, but two different types of Dusty Miller. One was a pelleted seed. which basically pelleted seeds, you really need to plant them all the year you get them. And then the other is an unpelleted seed. Dusty Miller is an annual, but they get big and beautiful here. And I thought they'd be a really nice plant to put in some of the landscaping as well as in some pots. Here are a few things that just got kind of potted up in bits and pieces. We've got a couple of our snapdragons, a few more Dusty Millers, some hollyhocks. Basically, I had a couple of trays like this where I only had a couple of cells germinate. So rather than leave a whole tray out, I went ahead and I potted up the ones that were doing well, and I just keep them separate. Here's a whole bunch of snapdragons. This variety here is Costa Mix, so that's actually a mix of colors. And more snapdragons up here. These ones are Madam Butterfly Cherry, Madam Butterfly Bronze, and Madam Butterfly Bronze with white. Snapdragons did really well for me last year, so I wanted to make sure I did more. I've got another Costa Mix and a Potomac Mix, so I'm going to have a mix of pastel colors, blues and pinks, purples, peaches, whites, just all different colors of snapdragons. Now they will get pretty big before they get planted out. And when they've put on, 4 to 6 inches of height, I will actually like snip them down to a strong set of leaves, and that will cause them to branch and just be more productive in the garden. All right, this tray here has Gumfrina and Crispidia, so that's for the cut flower garden. Another tray of zinnias. This one is a mix of hollyhocks, and then what was the other one on here? More rudbeckia. So this is a caramel rudbeckia. So again, this one's gonna be an annual. And then, which ones are these? Oh no, that's the asters, sorry. That's the asters. I've got pink and white ones. Pink and white asters, and then the rudbeckia. A weird mixed tray over here. So you can see, I tried to do delphinium over there. They didn't take. I have a rose echinacea. Again, echinacea is a plant. There are perennial varieties or annual varieties. These are going to be, I think these ones are perennial. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be a perennial one. More eucalyptus and even more of the foxglove. And then we have a couple more pumpkin varieties. I have everything from the giant pumpkins to mini pumpkins to flat stackers, pink pumpkins, blue colored pumpkins, just a whole bunch of varieties. Now in each one of these cells, I actually have 2 seeds. So once they start to grow up, I will actually choose one plant from each one to cut out. So I'll have 4 of each variety, and then I'll probably keep 2 of each one and then give 2 away. And then down there are my cantaloupes, 2 different varieties of cantaloupe, and a variety of watermelon. As I mentioned in the beginning, gardening is something that has really grown to become a passion of mine. I have loved learning more and more about what types of plants do well in our area, how to best help them to grow and to thrive, and also learning about our own food production. While we're not a full-on homestead, we don't have any farm animals yet, though I do want chickens before too long. I felt like by expanding the number of garden beds we had, we could, of course, increase our food production. My daughter also had an interest in plants and in botany. She took a year-long botany course from Guest Hollow, learned a ton along the way about plants, plant growth, plant health, different types of different plant species. And I was learning right along with her, and it was wonderful just the amount of new information I was learning, even as someone who had several years of gardening experience. The flip side of that, though, is that as you start to research gardening, as you start to look at different kinds of gardening accounts, whether that's on YouTube or Instagram or Pinterest, it's very easy to feel disheartened that you can't reach that perfect status. You'll see these gorgeous gardens with beautiful greenhouses and trails and all of these just large, beautiful plants growing everywhere. And what we need to remember is that those mature gardens often are years old, if not decades old. They are the result of meticulous attention and work done a little bit at a time over those many years. Additionally, when we're watching videos on YouTube, or if you're following somebody's Instagram account, You have to keep in mind that for many of them, that is their full-time job. Their whole job is to create that environment for them to show you on YouTube or on Instagram. They are naturally going to try to give you the best shots and the best angles and avoid showing you the things that might not be as pretty. Now, there are some accounts that will give you a real life view of what's going on. One of my favorite is Garden Answer. Laura, who hosts that channel, does a wonderful job of showing you kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. She's not afraid to show you when something is failing and talking about how they're going to address it, or being realistic about how long projects are going to take. Although even in that case, she has, of course, a lot of sponsors and a huge following, and so they are able to do bigger projects at a much faster pace than the average person would be able to do. And that is just something that I always have to try to keep in mind, because I walk out of my garden and I see projects everywhere, things I want to do everywhere, these big grand goals, and I have to bear in mind that I can't do them all at once. I mean, the winning lottery ticket would definitely go towards the garden, but the odds of that happening are very small. And so I have to be realistic about what it is I can achieve. What is it that I can maintain even? I don't have a crew of people to come in and help me. Everything that I add to the garden every time I do an expansion, it's something that is going to add to my own plate. Even if I'm having the family help me out with different things, it's just something that we're going to have to try to keep manageable while still working on growing and expanding our garden. But this year, I'm excited. We put a lot of new things in place last year, and we are, again, slowly building upon that. Well, there you have it. There's a little bit of an update on how things are going in our garden right now, some of the projects we have coming up, and the things that we are getting prepared for this upcoming growing season. I really prefer to try to do as many projects ourselves as possible in order to save money. Plus, it's fun to get out there into the garden, get your hands dirty, and work on these different projects, learning different skills such as putting in new garden beds, building raised beds, figuring out new methods of planting. It's just something that I enjoy learning about and being able to do. And as we do some of the bigger projects this summer, I will try to take you guys along in different videos, showing you how it is that we approach different things and how things are going. I also look forward to showing you how our food crop production goes this year, what we're able to get out of the garden, how much we're able to save back, preserve, can, freeze in order for our family to use that through the fall, winter, and spring months next year. Thanks so much for joining me for this video, guys. If you have any questions at all, whether that's about the things that we're starting, where we get our seeds, anything that we get from the garden, please don't hesitate to leave a question down below. A lot of the items that I have been using both in the garden and here for the seed startings, I have linked down below in my Amazon store, and you're welcome to check that out if you would like to try to get your hands on any of these different things. I also have an upcoming Q&A video, and I've posted on my YouTube channel page a spot where you can drop questions about just about anything. So if you have any gardening or homesteading related questions, you can leave those there, and I will try to get to those in that upcoming Q&A video. Thanks as always for joining me today, guys. Hope you have a great day. See you in the next video. Bye.